Hi, this is Caitlin.
Hi everybody, this is Paul.
Hello, this is Sheba.
Hi everyone, it's Sue.
Hi, this is Wendy.
This is great. You know, I recognize a couple of names in the room here, so I appreciate you coming back. So, how many of you, by a show of hands or claps, have looked at the little video on the right side of the home page in the D2L course? And Caitlin didn't like it. Okay, great. That's great. I'm not sure why the link broken thing is happening now. I think that might be a setting on the server that needs to be tweaked, so that you can automatically see videos when they're loaded into that slot. Most of the videos in the course won't be showing on the news section, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Yeah, it was blocked as a pop-up or something like that. Yeah, that's right, Caitlin. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We have, I think most of you now have posted in the discussion area some really interesting stuff going on there, and some people have started posting into the Seminar 1 discussion area as well. So please bear with me as we get all the rough edges cleaned up. Celeste is very good with supporting us with folks like Frank and some other people that have been helping me convert the course from Angel to D2L. It's still a learning process. I think this is this would be my 5th learning management system since 1999. So this one has a lot of bells and whistles, but it's still simple to use, pretty straightforward. So I'm really enjoying it. So today we'll get started. We'll deal with these technical issues, which always happen. Always come up. I set the dates on the Elluminate session for the time when I schedule it, as opposed to today. So we were able to fix that. I was able to fix that pretty quick. Sounds like we all have voice, and you can all hear me. We have the recording started, so you can go back to this obviously later, and people who weren't here tonight can log in and view it as well. So if you're listening to this in the future, I'll say hello. So I want to talk a little bit about where we are and have you introduce yourselves as well. And I want to talk about the outcomes for the course. You completed a pre-course survey, and I've compiled those results, and I want to give you a perspective, a view of who you are and what you bring to the course as well. I'll talk about the course layout and the schedule for the course. We'll go over the homeworks in pretty good detail, and talk about the presentations. And I know I think two things inspire terror in SLIS students like no other, and those are group works and presentations. So we don't have any group work in the course. We do have some presentations, and the scheduling makes them incredibly flexible and easy. So don't sweat that too much. Finally, I'll talk a little bit about the discussion grading. And one thing I always like to say up front, because this does kind of get people in a bind, is that the posts to the forums for the homework is a separate grade. I'll go over that in a bit. But just to reiterate that, things that you say based upon the homeworks in the homework forums, those are part of the homework grades. Those are not the participation grade, which is the discussion, the sort of wider ranging, more fluid discussion that happens out in the seminar discussion areas. Those are separate grades. So 30% of this course happens in the discussion areas which are not related to homework. And I do have you in teams. I have you in groups. You're not really, well, you're kind of working together, but you're not coordinating. You're not doing deliverables together. You're in there sort of participating in the discussion of facilitation together. That's about it. So let's talk a little bit about your name. So I'll go through this, and then you guys can take turns. Again, obviously my name is Jeremy Kemp. I'm sitting here in Clark Hall in San Jose State. I've been with SLIS for about 4 years. Before that was doing distance ed and training work in web development here at San Jose State. and before that had got a master's degree in learning design and technology. So we studied instructional design at Stanford, but also web usability issues, and I actually sat in on a couple of lectures by Jacob Nielsen, who we'll be reading pretty closely in the course. And one fun thing others may not know. Well, gosh, the student union's closed, and so my dinner tonight consisted of beef jerky and a protein drink. So anyway, something like that, something fun about each one of you. Amelia, I guess we'll just start at the top and work our way down.
My name is Amelia Herring. I tend to go by Amy. I'm in Los Angeles, right on the beach at Playa del Rey. I work at the National Archives right now as a student archives tech. I don't have a ton of experience related to the class, but I think that web usability and online instruction is going to be the norm, so I think it's an important class. And something fun that you might not know is my dog is sitting here with us listening to every word.
Hi everyone, I'm Amy. I'm currently in the San Gabriel Valley, not that far from Amelia, but with traffic it actually is quite far. I'm currently working not in the library environment. I'm working admin at a local retail store, and I'm not so experienced with web usability and all this tech stuff, even though people tell me I am. And one fun thing others may not know is I just had a beef jerky also, Jeremy.
Hi, my name's Callie Bowdish. I'm in Santa Barbara, Goleta area. I work at the UCSB library with archives and special collections. I do a lot of digital management type stuff. I publish finding guides onto the California Digital Library. I've been on a number of committees involved with web pages. I was on a web page committee when I was a computer systems specialist with the, I guess it was a systems, I can't even remember what the title was, but something like a computer systems specialist with the county. And then I belong to the Web Standards Committee at UCSB, and I put up a lot of web content, including streaming videos, but I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface. There's so much to web publishing, and especially usability, and I hope to learn a lot from this class regarding that. One of the fun things about me is I used to be an organic farmer.
Hi everyone, sorry. My name is Joel Webb. I'm in Sacramento, California. I have two internships. They're both at special libraries, one at the Bureau of Reclamation, one at Commission on Post, which is a peace officer standards and training library. I have minor experience related to this class. I took the 240 class. It was very challenging and I enjoyed it. But besides that, I'm pretty much limited as a user. As a user, I haven't experienced too much of the other side of the page. One fun thing that's not too fun is I spent all day today at the courthouse for jury duty, so I'm happy to be out.
Hi, my name's Caitlin. I'm in Santa Clara, which is right next to San Jose. I'm near the border there. I am a full-time student. I'm working a student assistantship at the Beethoven Center in the Martin Luther King Library, downtown San Jose, and just putting bibliographic information into their catalog. I have no experience related to this class other than being frustrated with interfaces of various kinds. And I guess a fun thing is that I was a music history major undergrad, because that doesn't seem to be too common.
Hi everybody, my name is Paul Hottinger. I live in Temple City, California, which is near Amy in San Gabriel. It's about 15 miles east of Los Angeles, and like you said, with traffic, it could take a good hour or so to get downtown. I work at the Cal Poly Pomona University Library as a library assistant. I have some experience with web usability. A couple years ago, I was asked to be on our library's web committee, and it was just a couple months ago, we got a new template from campus that they want us to move over to. So we're starting to revamp everything, and this should come in handy to do that. One fun thing, back in 2001, I'm a big Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and back in 2001, my wife and I were married on the pirate ship in the stadium in Tampa.
Hi, can everyone hear me? My name is Raymond Fu. My last name, the W is silent, so just a little guideline there. I live in Carlsbad, California, which is in San Diego County. It's also known as the only place in the entire nation with a Legoland. So, interesting bit of trivia there. What I do now is well, I'm also a part-time student. I also do part-time work at the library, just paging, very basic stuff, shelving books. Not too impressive there, but I'm also part-time volunteering at our local history room, so help out with a little archive work there. And I'm also trying to get some experience, on the side with technology stuff, such as taking classes in networking and such. So that doesn't quite cover the experience stuff. I mean, there's so much more that I've been doing. Like, none of it is in a work environment, which is pretty detrimental for me. I immensely enjoyed LIBR240, the web design class. Took a few others, like 246 with PHP and database development. I took it with Stacy Wiley. I think that's how you pronounce her name. It's really funny because she actually works at the same library that I do, or at least she used to. I totally didn't know that beforehand. Let's see. Another fun thing that others may not know about me is that I spent about half my life in Saudi Arabia. That, a lot of people give a double take whenever I say that. It has nothing to do with the military. It has everything to do with the oil industry, and it's kind of a long story with that.
Hello again, my name is Shiva. I am currently in South Pasadena, California. I am a full-time student and a part-time library aide. In regards to experience to this class, I am more or less limited to what I learned in Library 240. I also took that. And one fun thing about me, I suppose, is that I'm moving to New Hampshire in the middle of this semester, so that should be interesting.
Hi everyone, I'm Sue, and I'm in Vancouver, BC, up in Canada. I work currently at the UBC Library in operations and strategic planning. I have some limited experience, prior experience and current experience managing web content and evaluating websites. And one fun thing is these days, lately, this past week and carrying on through this week, I'm drinking every second day at about 5 p.m. Not today because it's an off day, because our team, the Vancouver Canucks, are going after the Stanley Cup, so we're all a little exhausted up here, but go Canucks, go.
Hi, my name is Wendy. I live near Boulder, Colorado. I'm a midlife career changer. I've been a systems administrator at the National Center for Atmospheric Research for over 10 years now, currently specializing in information security there. And I'm pretty burned out on it. I would really like to stay at NCAR though, and they have libraries, and I'm hoping very much to be able to transition to them. Experience related to this class, as a systems admin, I'm mostly familiar with the back end of websites, how to run a web server and keep websites going. I actually have very little design and coding experience with websites, so I'm looking forward to learning more about that. And a fun thing about me is a few years ago I won the Colorado State Championship in archery.
Is that everyone? Did we get to the full list? Anybody who came in a little bit late? Oh, okay, great. All right, let's do another very brief interactive exercise here. I definitely heard some Canadian and some. So where are we? Where are we all? I don't know if you. I think you guys should be able to see the drawing tools on the top left. Use those and mark where you are on this map. You know, this is very, very, I see this kind of spread almost exactly every time I teach the courses and every time I ask these questions. We have Southern Californians, some Bay Area, some people in Canada, and some people in various parts of the U.S. So it seems like a very, very common distribution for SLIS courses. Let's do just another few brief exercises here to talk about your demographics, what your age is, your gender, and you don't need to answer this problem about vision. Actually, this came from my dissertation about SLIS students, and I found that about half of everyone in the program said that they had some sort of a problem with vision. Answer whatever you're comfortable answering. You know, we've already gotten quite a bit of personal information off of those Facebook pages, so I appreciate your being trustful and coming in and sharing that information. So I'm going to put, I'm a 41 to 45, and I'm male, and I don't have a problem with vision. Yeah, the technical courses tend to skew a little bit more evenly male and female. The program overall is like, 80–85% female. Okay, great. And also, this is probably much more important than the previous page. What are you interested in studying? What are you interested in doing when you graduate with your MLIS? This is another thing that I've seen specifically in the LIBR, the 251 web usability courses, that we do get a lot of people interested in information technologies and special libraries, and obviously folks that want to do academic librarian and public librarian. But the special library and the information technologies skew more heavily in the 251. I'm curious, the other, if somebody wants to get on the microphone and tell us what other is.
That's me, Jeremy. It's Sue, and I'm not sure I've ever. I'm really looking at limiting to a library discipline more, because I also have a degree in communications, and I see a real need to blend the information knowledge management in with communications. So I've seen that, and really outside of a library specific field.
Has anybody here seen Ken Haycock's talk from graduation? He was the director, the previous director, gave an incredibly interesting and insightful speech for graduation. Usually they're, follow your dream, don't give up, those sorts of things. But this was very specific to the library field and to information science, and very specific to your situation. So if you're interested in following on in the job, continuing on in library science or information science, obviously you are, take a look at this speech by Ken Haycock. It was just brilliant. And you should also know that our career resources on this list page have beefed up considerably in the last 6 months. One of our senior administrators put together a great deal of information for people who are looking for careers in the field. Yeah, he always says that. That's a real common one, Wendy. He says that quite a bit. Ken says he doesn't. He has worked in a library, quite a few libraries, but he's never had librarian in the title. I think that's the key piece. Here's another one that's a little bit somewhat interesting to folks who are taking the 246 and the 240 and the 251. How, and I'll show you the totals for the program, the SLIS program overall. How often do you, and there are 3 categories here, socialize with peers using the social networking sites? Now, obviously, I think you probably all say pretty often. Well, at least we saw most of your Facebook sites in the forum. And the second question is, how often do you add content to websites like Flickr or Wikipedia or Facebook? Any place where you're adding user-generated content. And how often do you use the internet to communicate with someone in real time using Skype or instant messaging? It's funny. It's not. It's funny. It's interesting that the outcome of my dissertation, where I surveyed 1,100 of our STIS students who'd gone through the 203, maybe some of you, finished that survey, I found 400 folks who responded and told me that generally that women who are in their 40s and 50s who have these experiences of adding content and using the web to communicate in real time were much more likely to want to continue using the Second Life, the virtual environment. So that was pretty interesting. Younger women in their 20s and 30s generally had a pretty negative reaction toward it. I thought that was really interesting. It's counterintuitive. Generally, people assume that games and virtual environments and colorful, flashy things like that are more attracted to younger people. But in this case, women in their 40s and 50s were much more attracted to it than younger women. Here you can see the results a couple years back for the students in SLIS that answered these questions. You can see this was sort of a bad question because people in 203 just starting out really didn't have any relationships. They couldn't really be interacting with their classmates using social networking websites. So it was sort of a poorly worded question. This one, however, was interesting. Found that well, about 2/3 of the students were occasionally doing, at least occasionally doing user-generated content, and maybe 50-50, a little bit less than half were sometimes doing live interaction on the web. So it was interesting that these folks who did, like yourselves, who do user-generated content work tend to be more interested in cutting-edge emerging technologies. And I think there's a real difference, just editorializing here, there's a real difference in SLIS students between those who create stuff and those who arrange stuff. And it's almost like there's two schools. There's a school of people here at SLIS who create stuff and put stuff on the web and work with data and create it, put it out there, and then those people who arrange it and work with it in a more passive way. So generally, I think the folks who take the 240s and the 251s tend to be more active and more assertive and I guess just loud in the digital forums. So you guys generally have heard of some of the concepts, but not all. I think one or two of you wanted a slow, easygoing approach, and I think one, maybe two of you had already taught or were very familiar with the concepts. So, and this is a very typical range for the class as well. So most of you have a passing familiarity with it. A small portion of you want to go slow, and a small portion of you want to speed through it. Somebody have any thoughts about this slide or the previous few slides?
Hey, it's Paul. I just have a question. When you got all the information for like how often do you put something on Facebook or MySpace, what year was that?
Yeah, I turned off your mic. That was a couple of years back, so that would have been about 2 years ago. That survey was completed, maybe 18 months.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me? Okay, yay! Helps when I plug my mic back in. But back in 2008, I took Library 203, and I remember being on MySpace, and Facebook was still new to me and stuff. So when I started my SLIS classes and people on Facebook, I felt like it was having to learn a whole new social network. There was that whole transition from MySpace to Facebook. I didn't really want to start all over with something, and as we see now, MySpace is gone, and Facebook rules the world.
I think another thing that was interesting that I learned trying to implement Second Life, and also listening to what Ken Haycock had to say about the kind of really strong pushback we were getting on it, and this applies to your experience with MySpace and Facebook as well, is that librarians and people who help the public, the patrons, do what they want to do. It's not about you. It's not about what the librarian's preferences are, the information science assistant's preferences are. So, the fact that you weren't using MySpace and you had to use Facebook, that can really turn a lot of people off. And I know some of our students react to those things as consumers and not as information professionals. So, definitely keeping an open mind and looking at the needs of your customer and the patron first, as opposed to your own personal preferences. That was a really strong lesson for me, because I saw a lot of people taking a very personal perspective and emotional perspective on just a tool, even though maybe not everybody would use the tool. Maybe only 10% of the people that walk into their doors would be interested in using the tool. But that doesn't mean people they were confused about their own perspective versus the folks that they were trying to help. And that was a really strong lesson for me. And just to segue into the main purpose of this course is for you to learn how to to step into the shoes of someone else, to step into the shoes of your user, and to get them involved in the design process, so that you're not designing for yourself. You're not designing for how you feel and how your perception of the interface works. You're designing for how the user uses the interface. You're taking a different perspective. And I think people who really do well in the course overall, in the long run, by the end of this 9 weeks, you will have a different perspective on what it means to use an interface, and you'll have a different perspective on what it means to gather information from other people about how they use interfaces. That's really the key point of the course. And it's not a technical course so much. It's not a, if you've done 240, that's great. You've got probably a stronger perspective, but you're not going to be using HTML and CSS in this course. That's pretty interesting. People are kind of shocked and blown away by that. It's a technical course, but it's not a course about coding. It's really, so I want to see you working with users and getting good information from your users. And that's how you succeed in the course. That survey that I sent, I also talked about the worst times for you to meet online and the best times for you to meet. And it's very clear over and over again. It's very clear that the best time for folks to meet are early during weekday evenings, and generally Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So I always schedule these optional sessions during those times. And occasionally I'll have a decent portion of the students who are interested in meeting on the weekends too. So I'll talk about scheduling the final presentations. Those often have sessions on the weekends that are available for folks that want to do it that way too. So this is a course. It's a theory course, and it's also a methodology course, but it's not a coding course. It gives you a framework for developing interfaces that work well with people, that people can use, that people find useful. So it's really about a user-centric design and style. The real typical, my perspective on user interface design and user design is the IDEO method. So if you know IDEO up in Palo Alto, they use this method, and a lot of the readings and a lot of the sort of the way we're going to be working through things is very sort of Stanford centric. I mean, kind of the design, the D school at Stanford, and the IDEO method built up over 20 years of doing product design. That's really a focus of the course. So first off, you're going to be learning to, thanks Frank, critique and improve systems. This rapid ideation, rapid prototyping, rapid sketching is really important. A lot of folks get wrapped up in wanting something to be perfect before they show it to the end user, which is really a big mistake for a number of reasons. You're going to study the user experience. You're going to do it in a structured way. So by the time you're done with this course, you'll be able to structure the way that you gather information from users. Aesthetics is the simplest thing up front to say, I like it, I don't like it, I don't like how it looks. Hopefully you can get past that pretty quick. The aesthetics and the aesthetics of design, it's one of the heuristics that comes early on. People sort of glom onto that, focus on it, but hopefully you'll get past that as sort of the key focus. So another thing we'll be doing is talking a little bit about exclusionary designs and problems with accessibility. And we have some resources and readings and a lecture on that as well. So the course. I always do this with all of my courses. It's all built. You know, when I went to school at University of Oregon, and it was all in quarters. So I'm not used to these, you know, mammoth 15-week things. So I generally break the term up into 3 smaller courses. I call them seminars, and each one of these seminars has a very similar structure. So right now we are in the orientation phase of the course. You're getting this live session. You've got this little bit of a lecture, the pre-lecture, and then I'll be publishing, well, right now this is lecture number 1, and then I'll be publishing lecture number 2 here very briefly. You're in the Elluminate session currently, 6 p.m. today. We'll go until 7:15, 7:30. Then the evaluation seminar starts, and that's June 6th through the 21st. So from the beginning of the term through the end of the 3rd week of June. And here, coming right up, is quiz number 1. So you have 1 week from June 7th to complete the first quiz. So you're going to be doing the readings for, well, I'll show you the readings list later. But it's a very simple quiz. It's a reading quiz. There's 1 question. So what I do is I give you 2 hours basically to sit with your book, go through the materials, formulate a written answer. So it's really just a timed essay. There's no true, false, multiple choice. There's none of that. It's a structured writing exercise. And you have your book. You've already done. You've already looked over the readings. You're ready to go. 2 hours gives you enough time to go back through it and get more information if you need to. Then homework number 1 is an evaluation of the lot system. How many of you have completed the lots? You should have done it through LIBR253. Okay, yeah, great. So the reason I choose lots is because it's I wouldn't call it an amateur interface, but it's not something that a ton of resources has been thrown at. So it was built. It's actually in surveys of the 203 students, they find it the 2nd or 3rd most interesting material in the course. So lots is actually quite popular with the students. It also was developed by students in the program, for students in the program, and it was done with not a lot of resources. So there's still work to be done. You can still suggest improvements. That's one reason. So there's still some easy things to find in there that you can get your teeth around. The second thing that's useful here is that you all have the previous experience with it. So this is one interface that you all have previous experience with. Then an identical pattern here, the second part of the class, the design seminar. It is 3 lectures, a quiz, which opens on the 28th and closes on the 5th. That's another structured essay, 2 hours long. And then the sketches for revising lots due on July the 12th. And we're going to have a speaker July 12th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. And that's right here in Elluminate, and it's optional as well. And I'll have a recording and transcript for you a few days afterwards. That goes the same for this system, for this presentation tonight too. We should have a transcript and a recording on YouTube for you a few days after the session ends. Frank's going to help me out with that. Yeah, quizzes are a one-shot deal. That's right, Sue. It's a one-shot, 2 hours, one shot. Okay, then the third round, these are iterative. They go over different material but with the same structure. So there's going to be lectures and no reading quiz for the third seminar, but there is a homework. So you're going to create prototypes and show your prototypes to users and get feedback. Okay, then you're going to present homework 3, August 3rd through the 9th, and I'll go through the process we're going to use to schedule that. It's very easy. You're not going to have a conflict. Don't worry about those dates. I mean, unless you're away from a computer for 6 days with no access, then you shouldn't have a problem at all. And then final projects due August the 12th. The final projects are basically this entire model, these 3 portions of the design process, the usability, user experience process, on something other than what you've been working on previously. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to find problems in an interface. You're going to design solutions based on patterns, the patterns of design, which you'll learn about in Tidwell, and then you're going to implement those designs with users using a prototype. And all of those things then lead into the final project. So the seminars are individual slices of that process, and the final project is everything wrapped up in one. So it gives you a chance to show off everything you've learned in the program, in the class, and put it all in one place. I think this is a really good portfolio piece. So if you need some examples later for your portfolio or for interviews or work projects, whatever you're working on, you have one set piece, one contained piece in the final project that you can show to someone else. Right. So in more detail, Lecture 2 has to do with usability. Lecture 3 has to do with accessibility and universal design. Then there's a quiz on usability. It's not on accessibility particularly, but so that's June 7th to the 14th. And I will put up a practice quiz because I know, well, I've never taken a D2L quiz, so I want to make sure you guys have something that you can work with. Just so you have something that you know. You can open the quiz, you see the timer, you submit something, you submit the quiz, and then so you'll see the whole process. So I need to put up a practice quiz for you right away. And so homework 1, let's go over homework 1. This is about an evaluation of library websites and a usability evaluation of the LOTS system as well. Okay, so that's seminar 1. Let me I'll come back to seminar 1 and these homeworks in just a sec. Let me go over the schedule overall. So seminar 2, lecture 4 has to do with, this is very important, two pieces of content that are really, really crucial in the course are the heuristics of design, the interface heuristics by Nielsen and Cognazzini. So those are 2 authors, and they're just short web pages that go through the heuristics. And then the patterns of design by Tidwell. So if you master those, the book and those 2 websites, you'll have a lot of expertise coming out of the course. Then lecture 5, I'll talk a little bit about OPACs and non-web-based interfaces, interactive interfaces. Lecture 6, learning design, that's sort of a specialty. Then quiz 2 and homework 2 is sketches. This is more of just the chart. Some folks, it's funny, I work this way. I work in charts and visuals. Some folks don't like this, have a difficult time with these charts and visuals. So I've written it out both ways in the schedule page. If you go to the schedule page in D2L, you'll see that. All right, so this is just a text list version of that chart. Okay, so these quizzes are 20 points. There are 2 quizzes. It's automated in the sense that it's going to open up, start a timer, and then you need to submit your text by the end of the 2 hours. The homeworks were 30 points, 10 points each. These are documents that you're going to be including or submitting into the forum. So you're going to submit these to the forum and then talk about your documents with your classmates. So each one of these, the homeworks follow the quizzes in seminars 1 and 2. Okay, there's a homework instructions which talks about how I will grade the homeworks. So you can see things like in the rubric here. You can see things like learning concepts addressed in the assignment, thoroughly illustrated, and it's not all pictures and it's not all text. It's a combination of the two. Okay. So when you're drawing things, you don't have to be an artist, but you should think about the drawing, think about the structure of what you're trying to convey. So you don't have to. It doesn't have to look perfect. In fact, it probably is, it would be absolutely fine looking rough, looking like you thought through it. But it should not be sort of like a cocktail napkin sketches, quick. So it's something that you've thought through, and you'll see examples of this in the readings and in the lecture as well. So I'm not going to go through this whole rubric. So, okay, let's look at the homework 1. This is a fame and shame study. So you're going to take screenshots of 2 websites and post 4 times. So 2 of those posts are fame and shame. So you're going to include illustrations from an interface that exemplifies the principles and one that does not. And then you'll comment on 2 others posts. So for instance, you may have a library that you work in that's a member of the CLA, for instance, and you'll go in there, take a look at the usability principles, and then evaluate whether the user interfaces follow these principles or break them. The second one, you're doing something quite similar, but you're doing it with lots. So review the materials, complete the lots tutorial, and note 3 areas of concern. 3 areas of concern. And then post your findings on the Homework B forum. I don't, right now the instructions say that you won't be able to read the forum until after you posted your entry, but I'm sorry, I don't think that's the case with D2L, but I'll check on that. So once you've done that, once you've found 3 areas of concern based upon the heuristics, you'll compare your list with the list of one other student, noting the differences in the overlap. So you'll note 3 areas of concern for an interface, and then you'll go back and respond to other students in the forum. So each of these 3 homeworks has that feature. You're posting content, either sketches or just comments or screenshots. I wanted you all to learn how to do screenshots and post them to the forum. You're doing that into the forum, and then you're commenting on other people's work. Okay, thank you, Amelia. We'll have a recording for you. So that's homework 1. You are, the first part, finding 2 libraries and finding a fame and a shame example and commenting on the work of 2 other people. And the second one, you are looking at lots and finding 3 areas of concern mapped against the principles, the heuristics of design. This will make a lot more sense once you've done the reading. So compare your list with one other student. So that's the first seminar. That's evaluating lots and evaluating websites in the California Library Association. Yeah, Kaylee, go ahead.
Yeah, it's Callie. I don't quite understand what lots is. Do we have a link to that, or I imagine I did it a while ago, but I'm not sure what that is.
Sure. It's let me get you a link to that. It's the orientation for library science students that teaches them how to use the databases in the library. You probably have used it. Might have been a while back.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, the second seminar is about patterns. It's about take a look at Jennifer Tidwell's patterns and find a couple of these areas of concern, and then build a sketch based upon using the patterns. So solve the problems that you found previously using the patterns from the Tidwell book. So here's an example of you found a problem with the lack of visible status or the lack of consistency. In homework 1, you found a problem with visible status or consistency. And you chose to solve those using these two patterns. And the patterns are called the progress indicator and the card stack. And the end result of that are 2 posts showing your solution to the problems based upon the patterns. We're getting into too much detail at this point until you've done the reading. This will make a lot more sense. So you're finding problems, number 1. You do that in the first seminar. You are creating solutions, number 2, and you're creating sketches and posting those to the forum. That's homework number 2. Number 3 is even more involved. It has to do with testing the design from homework 2. So you've done these designs. Say you have these 2 designs here from homework 2, and you want to test them with real users. So homework 3 is about finding testers, finding 2 testers, and conducting testing sessions with a paper prototype that changes. So for instance, you would find a problem with the progress indicator, and you would create a solution, a sketch. Then you would find a user, put that solution in front of the user, and then make changes based upon their feedback to you. And you'll get a lot more information from these readings on how to do prototypes, test the prototypes, and then to make changes on those prototypes. That's homework 3, further on. Okay, that's a lot. That's the full text of the 3 assignments, homeworks 1, 2, and 3. Does anybody have any general questions about those?
I'm figuring it'll make more sense once we've done the readings.
Yeah, sorry about that. So, I mean, just to put it in the most straightforward terms here before you guys dig into the readings, you're finding problems with interfaces, like people have mentioned things with D2L or Facebook. Somebody mentioned a problem with Facebook and then brought on an example that the Facebook page is changing all the time, so it's not consistent. So that's a problem. So that's the first part. The second part is, okay, now you know there's a problem. How are you going to fix it? What are some patterns of design from the Tidwell book? What are some ways of working through an interface that are going to help people accomplish what they want to do? And that's part number 2. That's seminar number 2, is fixing those problems. Seminar number 3 is about getting users involved and seeing how they interact with your solution. So you found a solution, you found a problem, you designed a solution, and now you're testing your solution. It's pretty straightforward. The homeworks, I wanted to be as sort of detailed as I could be in those homeworks. So it's kind of hard to go over them very quickly. But so you're finding a problem, designing a solution, testing your solution. It's pretty straightforward. Those three steps, and then the homework, the final project, is really going through that whole process with a whole different set of problems, a whole different interface. The class has been pretty well reviewed. I've been really happy with the results. People find the structure useful. They find the readings interesting. They find the discussions really sort of stimulating. So I've had a lot of fun with this class. I think it's going to be great. So the survey for presentations that I give you, I'll give you toward the middle of the term. So this is an example of Doodle. The system is called Doodle. Has anybody here used Doodle in another course or on your own? Doodle is a really interesting way. It's basically an automated form that allows the person setting up the meeting to give you 10 or 15 or 50 options for times. And then it asks everybody to respond about which times do not work for them. So for instance, we can see this time here works for 5 of the respondents. So every single one of the respondents can do a presentation from 6 to 7 p.m. on Saturday, or is that Friday the 18th. But this time only works for Dawn and Haley. So I might set up, there might be a time set up for Friday at 10 a.m. That only 2 people could sign up for, but then there would also be another time set up from 6 to 7 p.m. on the 18th. And these Renee and Suzanne and Brandy, the people that couldn't come for the 10 a.m. time, would certainly be able to come for the 6 p.m. time. So in this way, I'm going to send you a survey based upon, well, I'll give you 15 or 20 different options. Then everybody fills that in, and then I will place a sign-up sheet in the forum. So by the time we're done, everybody gets a time, presentation slots, which are pretty easy for them to present at. It's always been pretty straightforward. I've never had anybody that just in the end just didn't have a time that worked for them. It's a little involved. It's a 2-step process, but it means that everybody gets to present when they want to. Does anybody have any question about the presentation timing? So those presentations are 10 minutes long, by the way, and they go over, you will be presenting your homework 3 prototypes and talk about your testing process. Those are real fun presentations. Go ahead, Sue.
Jeremy, in D2L, is there more options, or is it a PowerPoint thing as well, per usual?
Yeah, we'll be using Elluminate. I try to shy away from application sharing just because it's so awkward. If you can do flat PowerPoints or flat images of some kind, that's the best. What were you looking at doing, Sue?
No, I forgot that it's in Elluminate, so it's PowerPoint. I was just curious if we were, if that was the format.
Yeah, D2L, I don't think D2L has a lot of live stuff. We also lost the wiki system, which was too bad. I really like that out of Elluminate, or out of Angel, but it's got a lot of other nice features. The pager system is kind of odd. Makes a lot of noise. I don't know if any of you've heard that in another one. Oh yeah, Wendy. I paged Wendy, and she thought her computer. First time I got a page from Linda Main, I thought my computer was broken because it kept beeping at me. I think I might avoid that system, but anyway, we've got a lot of fun interface explorations in front of us, I think. Okay, I just want to iterate again, or point out again that participation, the 20 points of participation, are not your comments in the homeworks. So these are comments out in the participation forum for each of the seminars. So some folks have gotten into trouble for that. I'll be monitoring, participation throughout the term, but some folks have gotten into trouble when they thought that posts that they were making that were required for the homework counted toward the full participation grade, and that's not the case. So those are separate grades. Two a week in the general discussion area would be great. I also have a very detailed rubric here. 1/3 of you are working and are already starting to do this really, really well, and I appreciate the time. Leading the discussion and posting open-ended questions. We had a great question in there about Facebook. And good interfaces and bad interfaces, yeah, that was the one. Then the other 2/3 of you who are not currently facilitating a discussion, I'm going to give you grades based on these. And this rubric is right in the course documents area. Yeah, go ahead, Katie. Caitlin, sorry. Go ahead.
So do we only start new topics when it is our seminar section?
No, not at all. You can start a new topic anytime you'd like. Okay. All right. So can you do me a favor? Use the drawing tools. Put a checkbox by your name. Let me see who's here. Yeah, tonight's completely optional. It's an optional attendance. I just wanted to take a look and make sure that I knew who was here and who weren't, so I could send an extra note. Tonight's completely optional and voluntary, so thanks for coming. So right now, the evaluation leaders are Roger, Laura, Wendy, Helen, Amy, and Joel. And you guys are already jumping right on top of this, and I really appreciate your posts in the discussion area so far. And then next up will be Kyle, Amelia, Beth, Paul, Eleanor, and Suzanne. And then finally, Callie, Shiva, Michael, Raymond, and Caitlin. Yes, Wendy, I think they're great. I think you're doing wonderful. So the final project is at 30%. It's a capstone item, and it leverages everything that you've learned in the course previously in those 3 sections, evaluate, design, and implement. So, and this project does not have to focus on the lot system, and it doesn't have to deal even with websites. So I've had people do retail, like the grocery self-checkout screens. I've had people do back-end systems and libraries for just text-based or command line driven interfaces. Cell phones, I've seen cell phones done. So ebook readers. So the sky's the limit when it comes to the final project. It just has to show your mastery of the 3 general areas of the user experience design process. notice that this is not posted to the forum, and you're not going to be commenting on each other's work. It's 5 to 10 pages, including pictures, and so that's what I have for you in terms of the orientation. Does anybody have any comments or questions here? Yeah, so I'm getting used to the D2L interface, and this is the course documents view, I think. I've also placed the the content browser block in the middle there, and you see the video on the right-hand side. I'm curious, just just to kick off the course, what are some confusions or some questions or things that are not clear based upon the layout that you see so far? Ideally, I would have a couple of people working through the course with me as I designed it, and I could show it to them, and they could scratch their heads and find a problem, and that would be something I have to fix. I already got some good feedback from a student who said that they wanted the dates in the readings itself, so I added dates to the readings, to the reading list. Callie, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought the reading section was kind of confusing because I'm so used to seeing a link or a way to get to the reading list. You gave the author and the title of what we were supposed to read, but then there wasn't a link to the web pages, other than besides the chapters in our book, the web pages. We had to kind of search and find them ourselves. I was able to do that, but I just kind of expected a link.
Kelly, are you referring to the links that are at the bottom of the pages under the readings? Because I kind of wondered that too, and then I wondered if it was, I'm not sure though, is that what it is, Jeremy? You've got them linked at the bottom, or listed at the bottom?
Okay, yeah, so 2 people out of the 10 here in the room were confused by this, so this is a serious problem in the interface. So I think what you're saying is if you see, well, obviously if you see a link like here that says Nielsen website, the 10 usability heuristics, you would expect to see that underlined, right? Because it links to a website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it turns out that the materials list, like all of the readings, are at the bottom of the page in alphabetical order, and the links are there, but why not have them in context of the lectures?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So, all right, this is an error. This is kind of embarrassingly obvious error. So I need to go back in through the reading list up above and take all the links from the bottom and place those in line in the links above. So I'll do that. Okay, so yeah, you can see here Nielsen. So the ones up above do not have links, and the list below that's in alphabetical order does have links, and you can see. So, but my now describing to you how to get around my problem, that's a really bad habit, right? So if I show you an interface and then you say, well, gosh, I just don't understand what's happening here because I would expect X, Y, and Z, the designer to begin with is going to say, well, you just need to do this. You just need to press Control Option Z and then count to 6 and then go over there. And so, yeah, this is a really good point. You would obviously expect the words Nielsen website to be hyperlinked. So let me spend some time and grab all those links down below and import those into the reading list. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's a consistency problem, right? I mean, if it says website, and it doesn't include the the URL in the list, then yeah, okay. All right, that's really good feedback. Anything else? Get rid of all this embarrassing stuff. How about, go ahead, Wendy.
When you say lecture 2, does that consist of the readings and websites, or are you going to be posting lectures in addition to that?
No, lecture 2 is a video, and it will be up first thing in the morning.
Just back on your reading list, I don't think it's a bad thing to necessarily have a master list of the readings, though, because then they'd be easily accessible. Say you wanted to download them all at once and put them into like folders, if you know, unless it's easier for you to move them all, but if you could leave them all in one place, I don't think it's a bad design feature.
The citation format is helpful. It's just I didn't even think about scrolling down below, so I mean it's nice to have them there.
Yeah, and the fact that you didn't think about it is obvious, and that's what a lot of, you know, yeah, that's the real key thing about the course is not to blame the user, right? So if you behaved a certain way, it wasn't a problem with the user. And I hear this a lot later on. You'll find a user, so in seminar 3, you'll find a tester. A person will come in and they'll be your mother or your aunt or, you know, somebody who is, or your, you know, 10-year-old kid who doesn't have any, I should just, let me step back from that, a novice user without a lot of technical experience. So if you take a novice user that doesn't have a lot of technical experience, a lot of times they give you better feedback. They give you the best feedback because they're working with the interface in the most natural way. They're not an expert in library science. They're not an expert in cataloging. You know, they're just looking at it from a straight interface perspective, from a straight usability perspective, and those are often the best testers. So if you find somebody that has, one of your testers comes and they have a problem with the interface, it's not their problem, it's your problem. But lectures 2 through 8 are all videos, and those are recorded, and you play them. They sit in YouTube, and they come with transcripts. Today is lecture 1. The video lecture that you saw, the short one, the 6-minute lecture there, is that was sort of an orientation for the course. The lectures 2 through 8 look like that, same sort of pace, same sort of content, but they're longer. I'd like to have them up noon the day that they say they're supposed to be up. Go ahead, Kaylee.
So is the forum and discussion the same thing?
Yes. Is it written differently in 2 different places?
In other classes that I've had, it's been labeled discussion rather than forum up in the navigation bar. Actually, it is labeled differently in different places, because in the navigation bar it says forum, but in the content map, the individual discussion forums will be labeled evaluation seminar discussion, and they don't have the word forum in them. So I guess that's a consistency issue.
Okay, I see how to change discussion in the content pages, but not the word forum in the nav bar. So I'll do one or the other. Thanks. Oh, also, Wendy, tonight's, we'll call this lecture 1. It gets processed, sent out for transcript, and will be back and loaded up to YouTube, and that takes anywhere from 2 to 3 to 4 days. So these lectures, certainly the Elluminate lectures, the time that they're published is variable. But the regular video lectures 2 through 8, those should go up the noon, the day that's listed.
Do we have another Elluminate meeting? I'm not sure if I missed that.
There is a guest speaker on July the 12th. Yeah, that's 6 p.m. July the 12th. Then August the 3rd through the 9th, variable times, you'll be attending a single Elluminate session, and that will be scheduled for your convenience, actually.
So I haven't had time to read all the assignment requirements, but are we going to be critiquing the LOTS website? Is that part of our first work?
Yeah, that's right. That's the evaluation piece. Homework 1 has 2 parts. You'll be doing a fame and shame. You'll be looking at websites in the California Library Association set of websites, people who are members of the CLA. The second part, homework 1B, is to evaluate the LOT system. That's right.
Would you suggest that we watch lecture 2 before taking the quiz, or are the readings enough for that?
Readings will be fine, but yeah, lecture 2 will be up tomorrow morning. Okay. If you don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and then Frank will be doing the recording and transcript, and we'll have this up available for folks outside of the Elluminate system in 2 or 3 days. Thank you, Wendy.